Hello and welcome to Dave's Delightful Dishes. As always, I'm Dave, and it is such a delight to have you here visiting me in my kitchen. And today, we're doing a pantry raid. The weather's been snowy and the roads aren't great, so it wasn't a great day for me to go out for fresh produce at the market. So I looked through my pantry, through my fridge, and through my freezer and saw what could I use to make a meal tonight. And it turns out I've got all the makings of a really good meat sauce. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a pasta and meat sauce from scratch. Let's check it out. All right, so there's only so many things that you need. It's actually not a very involved dish, but I do have I pretty much carry most of the things you would need to make a pasta sauce pretty much every day in my pantry. So what I pulled a half a pound of ground beef out of my freezer, and I pulled out 3, which ends up being just a little bit more than a half a pound of these hot Italian sausage links that I've taken out of their cases. So that's going to be my meat for the meat sauce. If you want to add other different meats, or you don't like hot Italian, if you want to just use beef, however you want to make that arrangement, that's personal to you and no problem. It'll all work. And then I need some vegetables. So I have a half a cup of diced onion, a half a cup. In this case, these were those little tiny bell peppers that you get for $5 a bag, where there's a bunch of them. So I've got 3 or 4 of these little red bell peppers. It makes about a half a cup diced, and they're kind of like that bunch of colors. Makes it a little bit better. I mean, if you just as far as the look, if all you can get are green peppers, that is just fine too. To me, they don't taste any different. It's just the eyes. And I have about 4 or 5 of the Crimini mushrooms that I've sliced kind of thick because this is going to hold up to sauce. I have 5 or 6 cloves of garlic that I've minced, a teaspoon and a half of basil and oregano, and then there'll be salt and pepper to taste. And then I have the tomato stuff. I have I think it's a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. I have the standard size, and then these numbers are going to be in the description, in the ingredients, of tomato sauce, a can of diced tomatoes drained, and then 1 of the small cans of tomato paste. And then I have a half a cup of red wine. Pick your red wine, kind of whichever one you've got that you're going to like to drink, that's the one to put in there. So this is completely a cooktop deal, and I'm going to use my one of my cast iron Dutch ovens just because I like that to make sauces with. But any large stock pot or any kind of a pot rather than pan would be just fine for this. And we're going to start off by browning the meat and the vegetables, which we're going to do in that Dutch oven over on the cooktop. So I just put just the lightest little coating of olive oil on the base of this Dutch oven, just so that the raw meats don't stick to it. And I'm going to need a spatula. And we're going to put these meats in now. And then you got to break them all up and get that spread around. So it's a bunch of beaten up. And in fact, with these sausages, I'm just going to rip them apart by hand. It's going to make it go a lot faster. And if I got to do this quick before they get too hot for me to handle. There we go. Remember, wash your hands before you do this. There we are. And now this will break up real nice. And as this cooks, we can chunk it up more because we don't want these to be big pieces. We want this all to kind of become kind of like a meat crumble. And what we're going to do, we're going to let that just kind of start sizzling a little bit. And as soon as we've got that, where it's starting to sizzle strong, I'm going to add my vegetables. Well, at least a couple of them. I'm going to add in the onions and the peppers now and mix them in with it. And I'm going to put my garlic in too. Now, sometimes, if you've got really, really fatty meat, you might have to drain this. But because this is a sauce, I don't want to drain any of that flavor. And I've got pretty lean beef here anyway. So I definitely want to leave all these flavors in. So I'm just going to be adding 2. So now we got to cook this until the meat browns off and the vegetables become translucent and soft. I'm going to bet that's going to be about 5 minutes. Okay, well that didn't take too long, and you can see the vegetables are giving off some liquid, as is most likely the sausage. But there's not really a ton of grease in here, so it's not like you feel like you really have to drain it, because there isn't enough to really bother with. And that's extra flavor, so I want to leave that in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some red wine, that half cup of red wine, and stir that in. And I'm just continuing to break up the meat as I go here. And I'm going to put in the mushrooms and the tomatoes, the diced tomatoes. And I'm going to let that get back to where it's bubbling again, because I just put room temperature things in. Shouldn't take too long. This is a pretty good pot. And now's a good time to add a little bit of salt. I'm going to add a pinch of salt. And this is very much a to-taste thing. But I know I'm going to need more than just a pinch for the entire dish, so we'll start off there. Now that this is back to simmering, let me add in my tomato sauce, the small jar. Excellent. My crushed tomatoes, the big jar. And I'm going to add in my basil and my oregano. And stir this up. I'm going to bring the temperature down to medium now. And once I get that all stirred in and combined, I want to bring it up just to get it to a simmer. But then I want to step it back so that it's lightly simmering. I don't want this to boil. Now that teaspoon and a half of herbs, it was a teaspoon and a half each. And I'm also going to grind some pepper in here. And again, that is by taste. But if I feel like this doesn't have enough flavor, I can always add more. But you don't want to overdo it. There we go. Nice grind of pepper at the top, and we'll stir that in. And I'm going to let this come to a simmer, and then let it simmer open, with the top off for about 5 minutes. All right, it's been about 5 minutes, and as you can see, it is simmering now. So I'm going to take this tomato paste, and I'm going to add, this thing is a 4-ounce jar, I'm going to add half of it right now. And I'm going to stir that in and get that combined. And then I'm going to let this simmer with it. I'm going to put a lid on it, and I'm going to let this simmer on medium-low to low heat, checking on it from time to time, because you don't want to just let it sit. You don't want to burn the bottom of the sauce to the bottom of the pot. So I'm going to put this lid on now, and I've got it set, and so that's low, and I've got it just up from low, and I'm going to check on it every once in a while. And we're going to let this go for about 45 minutes. At the end of the 45 minutes, I'm going to take the lid off. I mean, you got to check it a little bit, but after that, when it's done, I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to give it a stir. I'm going to taste it and see if I need to add more seasonings. See if it's check it for thickness. See if I need to add more. Do I have to add more of the tomato paste, or is it too tight? In which case, I might have to add some more wine to loosen it up a little bit. But we'll play that by ear as we go. In the meantime, she simmers. I'm about halfway in, and I noticed that it was getting kind of loose at the top when I lifted the lid up. So I put in the rest of this tomato paste. And that means I may have to balance the flavors. But remember, that hot Italian sausage that I have in here has lots of seasonings on its own. So it may be okay. So I'm stirred that in to combine. I'm going to let this go for another 20 minutes or so, which gets me at about 40. And then I'm going to check it again. And at this next check, we'll see if we need to add any other flavoring. All right, we are at 45 minutes, and while this was going, in the last couple minutes, I boiled a pot of water, and I have the pasta going as well, because you want to cook that al dente, just according to the instructions of whatever kind of pasta you're using. As it happens, I'm using campanelle tonight, because I happen to have a box of it, and I've never used it, so it's an interesting shape, and it'll go well with a meat sauce. So I'm giving it a shot. But this is looking ready. It's nice and thick. The flavor's coming off of that hot Italian sausage, and then the seasonings I put in have made it. Oh, yeah. That's perfect. So I'm going to turn this off, put the lid back on while I'm waiting for the pasta to finish. And then as soon as that pasta is ready, we're going to go to plating. All right. The pasta's ready. The sauce is ready. Everything's perfect. As you can see, there's these funny little campanelles. I always think they look like a chanterelle mushroom. And I'm going to take a nice big scoop of the meat sauce, and then one more little smaller scoop. And that's a nice portion on top there. And then, they'll stir it in. And then I know, since this one's for my wife, I know she's not going to be happy unless we snowstorm on some Romano cheese. And every time I think I'm done, she says more, more, more. So we're going to get a nice big pile here on the top. This is obviously optional. I'm not going to have it on mine, but it is definitely going to give you some extra flavor if you're a cheese eater. And then, to make it perfect, I have a little garni from my parsley plant in the window. And as you can see, this is pretty delightful. Now, I call this a very successful pantry raid. This was stuff I had just laying around, stuff that's in my freezer, stuff that's in my cabinets, and we put it together and made one heck of a meal out of it. And you can too. Always take a look at what you have and have an idea of what you might be able to make out of it. And this pasta sauce, you could make this anytime, and it's really easy, and it's completely able to make it hotter or different flavors. Whatever you want to put into it is what's going to come out of it. But just follow this same kind of plan as far as meat and vegetables first, then add in the sauce, and it'll come out great for you. Let me know. Let me know if you try it. And if you like, I would love it if you would hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check me out on my Facebook page for the Dave's Delightful Dishes, which will be linked below in the description, as well as my Instagram page. And you can always check out on the link inside my Facebook page. You can check out Spreadshirt, and you can see my aprons and other accessories that you might find. There might be something you like. I'd love it if you'd support me. If not, no problem either. But I hope to hear from you. Keep those challenges coming in, and have a wonderful evening.